What if the greatest cyclist who ever lived wasn't riding today, but over 50 years ago? 5 Tour de France titles, 5 Giro d'Italia wins, 3 World Championships, every monument conquered, a record so total, so suffocating, they called him the Cannibal. Now riders like Tadej Pogačar are rewriting the sport's limits, and the question has never been louder. Has anyone finally surpassed Eddy Merckx? To answer that, you need to understand what created him. Eddy Merckx was born into a country rebuilding from war. His parents, Jules and Jenny, soon moved the family to Woluwe-Saint-Lambert, a suburb of Brussels, to open a grocery store. Inside that shop, life was defined by grueling work and family discipline. Jules worked long hours, instilling a belief that nothing in life came without sweat. While Jenny kept the family grounded under constant pressure, they wanted their eldest son to focus on his education, expecting him to secure a stable career far away from the physically punishing world of sports. But young Eddy had other plans. At age 4, he discovered the bicycle, finding a sense of freedom that the crowded grocery store could never offer. By the time he received a second-hand road bike, cycling was no longer a hobby, it was a burning obsession. He rode constantly, delivering groceries for the shop and racing local delivery boys through the streets. His father disapproved, warning him that cycling was a road to poverty and broken bones. The local Belgian cycling culture was notoriously brutal, filled with desperate young men fighting for a way out of poverty. When Eddy started his first amateur races in the early 1960s, he faced immediate setbacks. He was thin, quiet, and often suffered from asthma-like breathing issues. Rivals pushed him around and his mother begged him to stop before he seriously injured himself. The turning point came in the summer of 1961. At 16, Eddy competed in a local race in Petit-Enghien. Despite the breathing struggles and his parents' warnings, he crossed the finish line first. That victory did not guarantee fame, but it proved to his father that the obsession was real. But could this quiet boy survive the physical brutality of the professional peloton? The quiet, asthmatic boy from Brussels conquered the professional peloton, systematically dismantling his competition. By the late 1960s, a chilling realization swept through the racing world. This rider ignored traditional prizes, racing instead to eliminate his opponent's very existence on the road. The French rider Christian Raymond once recounted how his 12-year-old daughter watched the Belgian ride and remarked that he didn't even leave any crumbs, calling him a cannibal. The press seized on the moniker and Le Cannibal was born. In Italy, terrified rivals simply called him Il Mostro, the monster. This was a reflection of a deeply unsettled mind. For Merckx, the fear of losing was a far more violent force than the joy of winning. If a week passed without a victory, he was haunted by nightmares, waking in the middle of the night to slip down to his dark garage. He would compulsively adjust his saddle height by fractions of a millimeter, searching for a physical perfection that did not exist. His teammates watched this daily operating system of clinical obsession with a mix of awe and dread. His training schedule defied the physiological limits of the era. He raced relentlessly from the 1st of February to the end of October, converting major professional races into high-intensity training sessions. He famously believed rest days were a sign of weakness, logging over 30,000 kilometers a year. He treated the bicycle as an anvil of labor rather than an instrument of sport. This absolute refusal to accept ordinary results created a suffocating psychological pressure that crushed his rivals before the start line was even crossed. But as this insatiable engine gained momentum, a terrifying question began to circle the sport. How long could a human machine run at maximum capacity before it finally shattered? 11 Grand Tour victories, 5 Tour de France, 5 Giros d'Italia, and 1 Vuelta a España. To understand the gravity of these numbers, you have to look at the racing world of the late 1960s and 1970s. Grand Tour stages regularly stretched beyond 250 kilometers over unpaved mountain passes, ridden on heavy steel frames without the aid of modern heart rate monitors or team car fleets. Merckx did not just win these 3-week marathons. In 1973, he became the only rider in history to hold all 3 Grand Tour titles simultaneously. He spent 96 days in the yellow jersey in France and 72 days in the pink leader's jersey in Italy, record totals that established a baseline of absolute, uninterrupted dominance. But Grand Tour supremacy usually comes at a cost. Stage race specialists rarely possess the explosive snap required for grueling one-day classics. Merckx ignored this physical boundary. He captured 19 monument classics, the highest total ever recorded. He is one of only 3 riders to win all 5 of these historic races, and the only one to win each of them at least twice. He conquered Milan-San Remo 7 times, tamed the cobblestones of Paris-Roubaix 3 times, and won Liège-Bastogne-Liège 5 times. When the stakes were highest, on the single-day stage of the Professional World Road Race Championships, he took the rainbow jersey 3 times. These victories proved he could peak for a single afternoon of intense tactical pressure just as easily as he could survive 3 weeks of mountain climbing. To strip away the chaotic tactics of the road and test his pure physical engine, Merckx traveled to Mexico City on October 25, 1972, to attempt the hour record. Riding at an altitude of over 2,000 meters on a custom, ultralight steel Colnago weighing only 5.5 kilograms, he pedaled 49.431 kilometers in 60 minutes. It was an exhibition of raw, unvarnished power that stood unbroken for 12 years. This track triumph was no outlier. Merckx spent his winters racing on indoor wooden tracks, winning 98 professional track events, including high-speed 6-day races. While modern cycling forces riders to specialize, separating sprinters, climbers, and track racers, Merckx excelled across all disciplines, proving that his range was his ultimate weapon. This overwhelming success created a historical tracking nightmare, leading to a fierce debate over his official win total. Depending on the database, Merckx is credited with 278, 445, or 525 victories. The discrepancy is a matter of strict inclusion criteria. The lowest figure, 278, counts only elite UCI-sanctioned road races. The 445 total adds official track and cyclocross events recognized by national federations. The highest figure, 525, includes the popular local town criteriums and cash prize exhibition races of the 1970s. For historians, these numbers are not mere decorations. They are the empirical evidence of a physical output that has never been replicated. These records stand as a monument to an era when a single human could dominate every corner of a global sport. But this statistical mountain raises an uncomfortable question. Did Merckx run wild over a primitive, unscientific sport? Or did the brutal conditions and heavy technology of his era make his achievements even more impressive than those of today's hyper-tuned athletes? To find out, we have to look closely at the machines they rode and the roads they conquered. A champion's true stature is measured by the caliber of the giants he has to conquer. Eddy Merckx did not race in a vacuum. He spent his career locked in combat with some of the most formidable talents the sport has ever produced. In the grueling 3-week Grand Tours, he faced Filippo Gimondi, a relentless all-around force who matched him blow for blow. When the road pointed straight up into the clouds, it was the volatile Spanish climber Luis Ocana who possessed the rare, explosive power to crack races wide open and threaten Merckx's supremacy. On the brutal, bone-jarring cobblestones of the one-day classics, Roger de Vlamingh, the legendary gypsy, and the veteran Rick van Looy exerted a suffocating pressure, forcing Merckx to fight tooth and nail for every single monument. And then there was Bernard Hinault, the fierce Frenchman whose own legendary career and 5 Tour de France titles invite the only direct comparison of raw, unyielding dominance. But how does this golden era of rivals map onto the modern peloton? Today we watch Tadej Pogačar, Jonas Vingegaard, and Remco Evenepoel redefine stage racing with surgical precision, while versatile stars like Mathieu van der Poel, Wout van Aert, and Tom Pidcock bring explosive, multidiscipline brilliance to the classics. Yet the entire structure of the sport has fundamentally shifted. Modern riders benefit from wind tunnels, hyper-tailored nutrition, and extreme specialization, focusing their seasons on a few select peaks rather than racing relentlessly from February to October. This structural divide raises a compelling question. Are today's elite athletes solving entirely different physiological and tactical problems than those of the 1970s? Or has the very shape of professional cycling changed so much that modern stars and the Cannibal are playing an entirely different game? A drug test in Savona revealed phencylamine, a banned stimulant. He was immediately expelled from the race. Merckx wept in his hotel room protesting his innocence, and his team claimed the samples were handled without their representative present. While the suspension was later lifted on a technicality, the official test remains a matter of historical record. This was not an isolated finding. Official archives document 2 subsequent positive tests. In 1973, he was stripped of his Giro di Lombardia victory after testing positive for norepinephrine. 4 years later, another test at the Flèche Wallonne detected pemmeline, resulting in a 1-month suspension and the annulment of his 8th-place finish. Merckx attributed these to medical prescription errors, but the official sanctions stand. Around these confirmed cases, a cloud of unverified lore emerged. Rumors of sabotage circulated, including a famous claim that a suitcase of cash was used to bribe officials or that Merckx was set up by rival teams. Historians classify these stories as folklore, lacking any primary documentary evidence. The scrutiny followed him long after retirement. In the mid-2000s, his bicycle company faced a lengthy investigation over allegations of securing a contract with the Brussels Police Department through improper gifts. While the case generated intense public scrutiny, the Brussels public prosecutor officially dropped all charges in 2019 due to a lack of evidence. Perhaps the most physical manifestation of this pressure occurred on the climbs of the Puy de Dôme in 1975. Amidst intense French hostility, a spectator punched Merckx in the abdomen, causing kidney damage that hampered his performance. These incidents show that the path to the summit of cycling was never clean or simple. But do these shadows diminish his crown, or do they simply reveal the human cost of absolute dominance? In 1973, Merckx was reportedly the 3rd highest-paid athlete on Earth, pulling in £225,000 a year, which is well over $3 million today. His baseline earnings started with raw performance, 5,000 French francs for a Tour stage win in 1969, which doubled for a Giro stage by 1972, alongside lucrative appearance fees. But the real wealth came from pioneering global cycling endorsements. He became a household face for Gillette, Adidas, and Fiat France, while the Italian meat manufacturer Molteni financed his legendary hour record. After retiring, he commercialized his identity by founding Eddy Merckx Cycles in 1980. Though the company was eventually sold to Belgian investors, his name remains a massive legacy asset, placing his estimated current net worth around €30 million, though sports business analysts flag immediate uncertainty due to fluctuating private company revenues. Still, in an era of hyper-specialized modern contracts, it begs a fascinating question. What would the prime, insatiable engine of the Cannibal command in today's salary landscape beside Tadej Pogačar, Jonas Vingegaard, and the peak commercial power of Lance Armstrong? Today, Eddy Merckx lives a quiet life in Belgium. At 81 years old, the man who once terrorized the cycling world is a gentle, humorous father and grandfather, far removed from the cold, clinical machine of the classic race reels. His physical engine, once deemed superhuman, has faced its own quiet battles, marked by a cardiac bypass surgery in 2012 and a hip replacement in 2018. The clearest bridge to his legendary past is his son, Axel Merckx. Axel carried the heaviest surname in cycling when he forged his own professional racing career in the early 2000s, carving out his own identity under the shadow of a giant. Through Axel, the public gets a glimpse of the private Merckx, a warm father who laughs at his old training habits and shares light-hearted jokes rather than demanding perfection. Now retired for nearly 5 decades, Merckx still occasionally appears as a guest of honor at classic races like the Tour of Flanders, staying connected to the sport through the bicycle brand that bears his name. Yet the relentless rhythm of his youth has faded. The nightmares of competitive dry spells and the late-night garage sessions to adjust saddle heights are long gone, replaced by a quiet peace. What remains is a legacy that transcends the 525 victories. In humanizing the cannibal, we find a champion who survived his own exhausting obsession, leaving the final judgment of his greatness to history. Today's peloton is faster and more scientific than ever. Yet, as modern champions chase greatness, they still ride in the shadow of an untouchable standard. True greatness is not about matching numbers, it is about redefining what is humanly possible. Perhaps we are not waiting for the next legend, but realizing we will never see his like again. Did he earn the ultimate title? Let me know below.